So if you're a new investor looking to raise capital or a home buyer looking to raise some deposit from family, friends, or JV partners, then this video is for you. What's going on, everybody? It's Blandon here from mortgagehq. Now, I know asking for money is never an easy conversation. And often we have these proposals that we put up with our friends and family. And a lot of the time, these proposals are focused on ourselves and we don't actually end up getting any good results. And so even though those people have money, they don't want to give it to you because you just have not presented it in the right way. In this video, we're going to explore how you can present these situations to those JV partners and show them a win-win scenario. This is going to be applicable for almost absolutely everybody. Now, if you don't have parents with a property, that's also fine. The principles that I will be showing you will be the same if you're trying to present to friends or even just cold investors who will potentially put money into your deal. So in this channel, I've shared multiple times that the first property that I bought, I was fortunate enough to raise the deposit from my parents' revolving credit facility. Now, there is a common misconception because just because I'm Asian, potentially my parents just have more money to give. Now, I can tell you that's not the case because we're just your typical migrant family, came here with almost nothing, and my parents didn't have too much money in the bank or too much English in their back pocket. But since young, I've watched them work hard and save money. And so by the time I'm ready to buy a home, they actually had enough mortgage to worry for themselves, let alone to give me a bit of a deposit. But it came down to this because I simply made them an offer they could not refuse. And I'm going to show you exactly how it works. And just before I dive into it, if you find value in this video, please smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. We would greatly appreciate that, and hit the subscribe if you want more. Now, the first thing you need to understand is that there are 3 Ds to any deals: the deal itself, the deposit, and the debt. Now, the deal, I'm not talking about just any property deal that's on realestate.co.nz. I'm talking about a deal like the ones on the Black Friday, a deal that makes money, a deal that have instant equity, and you have probably heard me say this multiple times in the channel. The ability for you to actually add value and increase the margin on that property. Now, deal is related to your level of property knowledge. The more you know about properties, the better the deals you can acquire. And because the better deals you'll get, the more fat that is in there, you'll be able to give back a lot more to the investors that's going to give up any deposit into your deal. The second thing we talked about is the debt servicing, the ability to borrow the money from the bank. Most of everybody is going to have a finite amount of borrowing power. At some point, they will get a no from the bank, unless they have infinite income, or they fully adopt the infinite servicing capacity, which is one of the videos in our channel. We'll leave the link in the description below. Now, debt, simply put, is the borrowing power of an individual or a couple or whoever you're going into borrowing money with. Last D is the deposit. Self-explanatory. You need the deposit so the bank would lend you the money. This can usually come in 2 forms. One is equity in your existing property, which means you have a property that has gone up in value. You can now go back to the bank and ask for more lending. The second is your cold hard cash that you have saved up or got back from your investments. Both can be offered to the bank as a collateral or as a security to borrow more money for an investment property. Now, like most family with young kids who are getting into the property market, they usually have 2 out of the 3. For me, I had the deal and the debt servicing, but I didn't have any deposit. Now, the reason I have the deal is because at the time I was following a property coach around to look at properties who showed me how to renovate properties or look for good properties in different areas and sort of how to negotiate with the agents and the vendors. I wouldn't say I was an expert yet, but I definitely had really good basic knowledge from just doing that field work with the coach. My parents, on the other hand, already have a mortgage on their property. Their income hasn't increased much, so that the debt servicing hasn't been increasing as well. So if they want to buy another property, it's going to be tough. They already have the debt, they already have the deal, but they don't have the debt servicing. But the upside that they do have is that they couldn't get the deal because they don't have the debt servicing, but they do have the deposit accessible in their revolving credit facility. Now, each party on their own would have not been able to do anything because I had no deposit, so I couldn't buy anything. My parents didn't have the debt servicing, so they couldn't buy anything either. But together, you can see that new value could be created. So what we ended up doing was buy a do-up property where we can renovate to increase the value and therefore increase the overall equity position for both parties. But you might be thinking, hey, Blandon, you are just telling me a very standard deal. It's just a renovations deal. I know how that works. I don't see why that's a deal that your parents can't say no to. Well, little did you know, this is my offer to them. With this deposit, I would actually give them 100% of the capital gains when we sell this property. Why would I do that? All I want in return is when this property goes up in value, the equity that is gained, I can use that to buy another property with 100% finance. And so that now I can start my investing journey that way. And for them, they could just put up just small amount of deposit and be able to get all of the upside on one property that they couldn't have serviced. So that way it's a win-win scenario. Now, of course, there are many more ways you can structure this deal because in a property deal, there's also cash flow, and cash flow is a complete different game. You can promise your investor a specific return on their capital as well. So how can you apply this? Most people, what I realize when they ask for money, they are only thinking about themselves. What we need to start thinking about is what the other person wants. What's the benefit for the other side? By thinking about what they could not do themselves and something that they would want, you would be able to see where you can create value for them and for yourself as well. Obviously, the most standard way is just to have a loan, but usually the amount that you can give in the interest is just not enough. So you would want to give a bit more, like some of the upside on the equity gain and perhaps some of the rental income as well. Now, really important to note, out of the 3Ds, deal, debt, deposit, the most important one that you can get the most leverage out of is the deal itself. If you watch the last episode with David, he will explain how he did a deal with no deposit and no debt servicing and purely just structuring a deal because he had the knowledge and he could raise the capital and have someone else service the debt as well. And so the property knowledge is going to be the most important. So next time you're asking for money, instead of just walking up to the investor, JV partner, or your parents for $100,000, instead of just asking for that money, imagine walking up to them with this proposal here. You've got a report for all of the suburb data of all of the similar properties that were sold in the area, showing them exactly how much you are buying below market value. You've got a couple of pages explaining the development potential of this property, how you could stack up more terrace houses on it in the future if that was one of the choice that you want to make. You could show them the full cash flow analysis on exactly how much is going to service, how much you're making at the end of the year, and what's the potential downside if it was vacant, showing them the upside and the risk as well. And you're also showing them the future capital gains projection. By looking at the past data in this particular suburb, you can show them the probability of the property going up at 7%, probability going up at 5%, what's the potential upside in the future, and if they sold it, what's their profit. So they can see exactly how much they could potentially make for the $100,000 investment they're putting up with you, opposed to just having that $100,000 sitting in the bank, just getting bank interest rates. Now let me ask you, if you showed all of that to them and they just had $100,000 sitting around in the bank, what do you think they will say? Remember to subscribe if you want to learn more how to make more offers that people can't refuse. And I would love to hear from you. So drop a comment about the last time you asked for money and how did you approach it? Did this video help you in terms of coming up with new ideas on how you could approach it in the future? Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.